I had a Department of Health lady inspector say, I can't believe how active and good your residents look. What's your secret here?
What do you think of when you hear the words assisted living facility? You probably don't think about nutritious meals and vibrant residents improving their physical activity and improving their memory. In fact, it's frequently the opposite. But Hal Cranmer is trying to change that. With his assisted living facilities, by using ketogenic and even carnivore nutrition, he's seen dramatic changes in his residents. Let's hear how he does it. Welcome to Metabolic Mind, a nonprofit initiative of Bazooki Group, transforming the study and treatment of mental disorders by exploring the connection between metabolism and brain health. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Well, Hal Cranmer, thank you so much for joining me today on Metabolic Mind.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for inviting me, Bret.
Yeah, so I, first learned about you through Twitter and X and your postings there, Paradise for Parents, right?
Correct.
And I was pretty amazed at a lot of the content you were posting about what you were doing at your residential care facility. So before we get into the details, just give us your background of who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into some of the nitty-gritties.
Okay. I want to start by I'm not a doctor. I'm not medically trained. I came to this from a very roundabout, diverse route. I was an Air Force pilot, an airline pilot. I was in manufacturing for about 20 years, and then I kind of stumbled into this as a real estate investment. But once I started doing it, I became very passionate about our elderly and thinking, we could do so much better. And I don't know, maybe it's the manufacturing in me that always wants to improve processes, things like that. But I just saw an opportunity to, we don't have to just accept that you're growing old and you're just going to be in a nursing home and you're going to have to take pills and watch TV until you pass away. And so I just, as a businessman, tried to figure out what I can do. So I bought one assisted living home. They're basically 10-bed residential homes that we've modified. Used to be just a family home that we've modified and put a whole bunch of bedrooms and bathrooms in them to make them into assisted living homes. And we, like I said, we're licensed for 10 in each of them. I own 4 of them now, around Phoenix, Arizona, and different suburbs of Phoenix. I used to own 5, but I started having grandchildren, and so we cut back and sold one. And I concentrate on those 4 and try to figure out the best way to take care of my residents, with the goal of actually sending my residents home and living at home rather than living in my assisted living homes.
Yeah, and so really interesting. You came about it from saying we can do better. I'm not sure how we can do better, it sounds like, but we can do better. So let me get involved and see what we can do. So then you started with your facilities, and at some point, nutrition and what you were feeding the residents, what the residents were eating, became a priority for you. So give us that journey on how you came to focus on what they were eating, what kind of impact that had, and specifically how you changed the food that you were providing for them.
Sure. So when I looked at what I could do, when I first got into the business, I didn't have an assisted living background. So, the first 6 months to a year were probably just learning the business and trying to keep the homes full and my employees paid and things like that, and run it as most other assisted living businesses did. When I started thinking, okay, what can I do better? The first thought, there's a lot of regulations around assisted living, as you can imagine, as any medical facility. And so there's only limited places that you can make big improvements, because you're not going to prescribe medications. You're not going to vary their daily routine a whole lot. So really food became the biggest area, because there's a lot of guidelines around food. There's the food pyramid, there's nutrition guidelines, things like that. But there's not really, when they come and inspect my homes, the big thing they're checking is that we have a menu posted on the wall. Now if we put horrible stuff on the menu. If we put ramen every day and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, the Department of Health is going to have a little problem with that. But if we put, regular food, no one really questioned it. So I thought, well, here's an area we could improve. And I didn't really think of food as a huge benefit, but I just thought this is an area that's not highly regulated, that I have some flexibility in. So, I mean, I came to it from a guy who likes to be in the gym, likes to work out, but I always would go home and have a pizza and a beer at night. So, the first thing I did was, besides food, I wanted to get them exercising and moving around a little, because I just thought sitting in front of the TV can't be that good for them, especially at their age. I did a little research into a condition called sarcopenia, which affects all of us, where your muscles start declining as you age after you hit, your 20s and 30s, and you've really got to work at keeping them up. So I hired someone to work at that. And the trainer I hired, he and his wife were vegetarians, and they were thinking we could make all our residents vegetarians, and it would really help them. And I was like, okay, I don't know much about this. So I said, okay. So we had his wife cooking meals for them. I actually, that didn't really work, because she could only cook like on Sundays and wanted to make meals all the way out to Thursday. And then she could do some Friday, Saturday, and come in for the full thing on Sunday. But by Wednesday or Thursday, these vegan meals were getting soft and not so great in the fridge. I had a lot of residents say, I'm going to move out of here if I have to have one more salad for breakfast. It just wasn't working very well. And I tried with the vegan nutritionists. I hired specific ones to do that. They had me running all over town getting different ingredients and things like that. And I just wasn't a fan. So I went back to, what can we feed them that they're going to eat, and that it's also going to do well for them? Because there's a lot of, Alzheimer's and dementia. The root of it a lot is insulin resistance and inflammation, as it is with a lot of chronic diseases. So we get a lot of people who come into our homes that are pretty much sugar addicts, and trying to just tell them, whatever you're going to feed them, we're going to cut you off from your desserts and everything, is very challenging. So, and to go from that to being a vegetarian is really not going to work. So I kept looking around. I just thought, well, let's try to wean them off the snacks. Let's keep it sort of out of sight, out of mind. And let's not feed them so much between meals. Let's talk to the families about, let's not bring them ice cream cakes for their birthday. Let's just calm that down a little. And that seemed to help some. At the time, I
want to interrupt you there for 1 second, though, because I think that's such an interesting point. When you're trying to make them healthier, give them healthier options, I can imagine the family is like, they feel a little sad that their loved one is not able to live independently and is having memory issues, and like, oh, they really love their cakes and their cookies. Let's give them what they love to make them happy. Like, did you run into that? Like, oh, but this really makes them happy, as opposed to you saying, well, it's not really helping their health and their memory. So was there a little conflict there with the families?
I still run into that. That's a constant battle. And we don't, if a family's really adamant about, we want our loved one to eat whatever they want, I do that. I have a separate little pantry for them. I ask them, if you're going to bring the ice cream and the cookies and stuff, I have a little separate area of the house. Feed them there. Don't do it in front of the other residents. Okay? Because I have a lot of residents whose family came specifically to me now for the good nutrition, to help their parent get better, and have no problem at all with them not getting the treats. So we have to kind of divide them up. What I do is make very nutritious meals, low carb, ketogenic, carnivore, things like that. And then we add extras to the people who want the extra stuff. And
So I'm sorry, I had interrupted you because I really
absolutely.
wanted to ask that question. So the vegetarian, the vegan wasn't working. You wanted to cut down on snacks and cut down on sort of the junk food, but then somehow the transition came to more meat, more protein, keto, carnivore. Now, how did that happen?
Uh, I was listening to a podcast that had a guy named Dr. John Jaquish on it, and he is a sort of engineer, inventor in the health space, and PhD in biomechanics, I think. And he first developed a machine called an OsteoStrong, which he studied gymnasts because gymnasts hardly ever got a osteoporosis. And he realized that when your bones and your body are subject to sort of regular pounding, it actually strengthens your bones as a reaction, and it protects you against osteoarthritis. So he took what he saw with gymnasts and made a machine that sort of simulates that the elderly people can sit in, and it helps their osteoarthritis. That wasn't what was interesting to me, but I mean, it was, but I don't really have that around. I haven't delved into it. But he also he looked into how can you build muscle easily. And through a lot of his scientific study, he found that muscle really is built across three zones: your weak, medium, and strong zone. And I apologize for this roundabout story, but it'll get to the nutrition stuff. So he came up with this device called an X3, which is a band, which basically, using bands, as the band stretches, it's harder. So your weak range gets worked at a certain level, your mid range and your strong range. And so I thought, this is great. I'm going to try this in my homes too. But in addition, he said, if you really want the best muscle gain, you need to utilize a carnivore diet. And here's all the research and published medicine stuff. And this guy's a monster. I mean, he lives what he's talking about. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to try this on myself first. And I couldn't believe how good I felt. I mean, I'm 57 and I've been on it for like 3 years, and I feel like I'm 25. I can go run and sprint and do pull-ups and all this stuff. And I don't have any aches, pains, anything like that. And I'm just like, wow, this really makes a difference. Um, I thought this is going to be a little hard to convince my residents and their family that, hey, you're just going to eat meat and fish and eggs, and that's all we're going to do. So as I looked into more of the carnivore diet, it brought me around to the ketogenic diet. And I discovered this whole world of ketogenic people from mental health practitioners like Georgia Ede and Chris Palmer, Ken Berry, to Sean Baker, to all these doctors online that are going to the ketogenic route. I went to a ketogenic conference with Low Carb USA in San Diego, and I've really just started learning more and more about it. I found a doctor online named Dr. Dale Bredesen, who's done some amazing work with Alzheimer's and dementia, reversing it in a lot of people. And he advocates a ketogenic low carb diet to do that as well. So it just all seemed to come together of this low carb diet seems to be the best answer for a wide range of conditions that I see in my assisted living home. And the best part about it is you can make low carb foods that in many cases look like regular food, and they don't notice a big difference, but they will have a big difference in their health.
Yeah. So what are some of the things you first noticed when you made the change? I mean, in a way, it was sort of an unintended experiment. You've got, the captive audience, they're eating what you feed them. And at some point you change the diet, and you could just observe, even if it wasn't a scientific study, you could observe changes in your residents. So what did you notice?
Lots of stuff. I saw blood pressures going down. I saw blood sugars going down rapidly, like within weeks. uh, I saw people starting to walk more, weight loss, and weight loss for people who needed weight loss. It was like you get a lot of people in assisted living, especially the old ladies that are 5'2" and 95 pounds, that you don't want them to lose any more weight. They weren't losing weight. Like the ketogenic diet wasn't like turning them into anorexia. It was just maintaining health. Even and then even some of the dementia people, we would see a little improvement in memory kind of thing. So it was just overall health. What really got me was the Department of Health comes in and inspects our homes at least once a year. They knock on the door one morning and say, guess what you're doing the next 4 or 5 hours? There's no notice or anything like that. Where they go through all the paperwork, they walk around the home, they check fire alarms, things like that. They talk to residents to see how they're doing. And I had a Department of Health lady inspector say, I can't believe how active and good your residents look. You know, what's your secret here? So that really was like, because, day to day, you don't really see the changes like overnight. But to have someone who comes in once a year, because we'd had this same inspector a couple of years, come in and go, whoa, they're all walking around. They're all doing well. They're all talking to me. Was really neat, and it wasn't just, well, I got healthier people in. It was, that we saw them getting up out of their chairs, that they could go home with their family and go out to dinner, go, excuse me, to go home for the weekend or go home for Thanksgiving or that kind of thing. So it was like, wow, this is really cool. And we even had a couple people go home permanently, which is really neat. I mean, yes, it's not.
Well, I'd imagine there must have been a bit of surprise though, like whether from the residents or their family, like, oh no, this can't be healthy. Like they need their whole grains and they need their cereal and all this meat. They can't be healthy. What about their heart? What was there that initial concern, and then did that concern just kind of go away once they saw how much improvement that their loved one was having?
Yeah, that concern continues. I mean, I have regular discussions with them. When we first did this, I had a lot of people just say, I don't want that for my mom at all. So what it took was seeing others getting better, in the home. And they went, oh, maybe we should try that. And then as word got out, now it's much more, I get people wanting to move into my home because of what we do. And I try to tell them up front, this is what we do. If you want cake and cookies and ice cream and your mom watching, I don't know, CNN all day or something like that, there's a whole bunch of people and businesses that will be more than willing to help you do that, around me. There's enough demand for what I do to be able to start discriminating and saying, here's what I like, here's what we're going to do. Are you okay with that? If not, I can recommend some wonderful places for you to go. I mean,
yeah, but you had to believe it. I mean, you really had to believe it and go all in to make these changes and see the results that you're getting. Now, you mentioned the Department of Health. I mean, we talk a lot about the U.S. dietary guidelines and how they can sort of regulate facilities that get federal funding. Are you subject to any of that? Because I'd imagine that would sort of go against what the guidelines recommend.
They haven't questioned anything that I make. Like when they look at menus, I mean, our menus look pretty normal. Like there's steak or ground beef, or, we'll do a keto lasagna, but we'll put lasagna on the menu, right? I mean, it is lasagna technically. So,
well, it's such a perfect example though, because, the guidelines the recent news is that they're going to recommend to eat less meat, that's healthy. And it just misses the whole point. It misses the whole point. And so I'm glad that they're not, they haven't really decided to make any waves, because you're seeing the results, because the demand is there. People want to come to your facility because they can eat like this and improve their health in the ways that they've seen. It just, to me, it just highlights the fallacy of the guidelines. And so anyway, that's my soapbox to react to that and to applaud you for what you're doing.
I think, the Department of Health is there, although it sounds nice, the Department of Health, they're really the Department of Compliance. And so they're they're much more interested in the prescription medication side of it. Okay. They see this as a house. They want to make sure no one's being neglected, mistreated, unfed, things like that. If they see the residents are doing well, they're not going to really question what they're eating. If all the residents look like concentration camp survivors, they're going to be like, okay, what are you feeding them here? You know, or if people are passing away or if they're getting complaints from families, they're really going to dive into that stuff, as they should. But if they see everyone doing well, it doesn't seem like what specifically you're serving on the menu is a big concern of theirs. They're more interested in, okay, the nurse recommends 4 showers a week. How, show me the documentation that you're giving this person 4 showers a week, that kind of thing. So I when that lady said that everyone's doing really well, I said, would you like to know how I'm doing it? She said, well, I'm not really here to do that. I'm here for compliance. I need to just check all this stuff. So it really didn't get into that. So I think we hear on the news, you know, we're going to recommend less meat, but they're not going to come in your house and watch you eat. You know, the trouble is they're going to, you know, regulate the farmers to raise the price way up or something like that to try to stop it at that end, not at my end, I think.
All right, so we're hearing about all your success stories and how well your residents are doing. But at the same time, you are running a business and this has to be financially viable. And let's face it, you know, ribeyes and steak are more expensive than cereal and rice and pasta. So what are some of the things you've learned along the way to make this not only healthy for your residents, but financially viable for your business?
Sure. So for my business, it's easy to just look at the price of a bunch of steaks you buy or the cereal box you buy or whatever to compare and go, wow, this cereal's $6 a box and this steak is $30 for 4 of them. But what people go, first of all, go to your pantry and look at all the stuff that's been sitting in there that's processed food forever and that you haven't consumed. That's all money down the toilet. You probably won't ever consume it, and it'll probably get thrown away eventually. Same with vegetables. You probably have a whole bunch of rotten vegetables in your cabinets or refrigerator that you're probably going to throw out. So there's a whole lot of stuff that you eliminate with the carnivore diet to start out with. Secondly, you don't always have to buy grass-fed beef. We're seeing changes with our residents with grocery store beef. Same with fish, and you can use chicken as well. You know, it might not be at quite the nutrient density of beef, but you can do alternate meats. Organ meats are very cheap. If you don't mind eating those, they're incredibly nutritious. So you can sprinkle those in with and grind them up. And if you don't like the taste, and put them with ground beef, and you're still getting the nutrition with them, and you'll get the ground beef taste. So what you got to do is look at what you're eliminating. You also, on the carnivore diet, your cravings go down a whole lot. So you're not snacking during the day. So you're not eating. So before we even get into what you're saving by buying the product, you have to look at what you're saving by not buying other products. Then I use apps like there's an app called the Flip app, FLIPP, and you can put your grocery stores and you can put meat or whatever you want to buy there, and it sends you notifications on your phone when there's a discount at your local grocery store on meat. When I go there to the grocery store, I have a freezer in each of the garages in my assisted living homes, and we basically clean out the grocery store on that sale day. You know, I get people at the checkout counter saying, "Oh, big barbecue this weekend?" I go, "Nope, I own an assisted living home." They're like, "What?" So, you know, I'll load up a cart with the sale items, put it in your freezer. You can freeze it forever, and then take it out. I've gone to local ranchers and talked to them, you know, and what kind of deals we can make if we buy on a regular basis. And then I can just text them and they'll have it ready for me, you know, to buy in bulk. And then we can put it in these big freezers we have in the garage to store it that way. That's good if you can get everyone, because they'll want to sell you a whole cow. So there's some meats and cuts that aren't so hot for people. You can also get things like London broil and chuck roast steak and things like that. And if you marinate them and cook them in the oven, they taste really good. And especially for elderly people who've lost a little of their taste buds and things like that, they're extremely nutritious. They taste great. I can get them for as low as $3.99 a pound. We'll load up on those. You can put them in a slow cooker, make them nice and soft for people, and still save a ton of money on those. So, and ground beef still has a ton of nutrients, and you can get that for $2.99, $3.99 a pound, especially if you go for the higher fat density, the 80-20, the 75-25 kind of thing. If they're not in need of losing weight, those fats are really good for elderly people, their brain health, their ketosis, things like that. So there's lots of ways. I put it in my guide how to do this, but even if you download the regular supermarket apps, and wait, and they'll notify you when there's a sale, or they'll have digital coupons or things like that. Costco, Sam's Club have some great deals on meat. You can go to those as well. So the trick is to sort of use your electronics to monitor when you have the deals and jump on them when they occur.
Great advice. Yeah, not just for someone running 4 assisted living facilities, but for an individual too. All those apply.
My
So
home
excellent.
freezer.
Yeah.
So my pantry's used for like coats and things like that now. I hardly have any food in there. My wife eats like I do, so it works really well.
Well, then what about the reaction in other assisted living facilities? Have people reached out to you because they've seen the success you're having and they see that the demand is there? Have people been reaching out to you to say, hey, how can I do this? How can you help me transition? Because I'd imagine it's the kind of thing where people speak with their attention and with their dollars, right? They want their loved ones to get the best care. And if they see the type of success you're having, then more people are going to want to do it. So have you seen that start to sort of filter out and grow?
I'm starting to see that, yes, definitely. I've had several facilities reach out to me and said, can you help sort of consult with us and implement that? Because assisted living is like any other business. If you study marketing, you want to have a unique selling proposition for your business. You want to be something different than the other assisted living facilities. And, some places do it because they have this gorgeous place that's, insanely beautiful and 20,000 square feet and stuff. I'm doing it with food and things like that. So this is an easy one that a lot of assisted living homes can do, and they can they can charge more for it, and their residents last a lot longer. So they're seeing what I'm doing, they're getting the word out, and yes, I'm getting more people interested in doing it. I want to help people. I don't see this as competition. I see this as, I hate to say it, but make America healthy again. Let's share our knowledge and let's get the word out, and I really appreciate getting on podcasts like yours to do that, because I think this could be a really big shift in how we take care of the elderly.
Yeah. So you really focused on the nutrition, on giving them whole foods, meats, proteins, low carb, and you mentioned the physical activity too. I mean, they go hand in hand. So you mentioned you've seen your residents becoming more active. So what type of physical activities have you gotten them involved in that you otherwise haven't seen them be able to do?
So we do that X3 bar thing that John Jaquish came up with. We take them on field trips. Like we'll try to walk them every morning. We're in Arizona, so we can take them outside sort of year round. The summers are a little challenging, but we'll try to walk them, when they first wake up in the morning before it gets really hot. In the winter, it's beautiful here, so they can do that every day. They get the sunshine, the fresh air, the vitamin D. We have saunas in our homes. We have red light therapy we use with them, which is all, part of these dementia protocols that help them as well. And then we'll have people come in and sing, and we'll get our residents up dancing. Um, we'll take them like out on a local lake, out on a boat, and let them walk around there, just to show them, try to motivate them to say, hey, if you get better, it opens up all these other things you can do, to get out of our home, either temporarily or hopefully permanently.
Yeah. Interesting business model to want to make it so they don't need you. But in a way that
That
just
should
is
try
going to
to become
attract more.
obsolete, in my opinion.
Yeah. To try and become obsolete. Yeah. That and it sounds like it sounds like it's definitely working. And, I do find it interesting though. You mentioned that you can kind of get two different types if you want to just put people in buckets. You can get the very thin, frail individual with sarcopenia, and then sort of the overweight, insulin resistant, possibly even with obesity. And you found the approach that can help both of them and that can address both of those conditions. I think that's really interesting. You don't need sort of a separate approach, that the low carb, whole foods, high protein is going to work for both those individuals. And were you sort of surprised to see that?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, low carb's like a miracle drug, but it really, I'm thoroughly convinced it is for lots of conditions, from mental health to physical health. And there, I don't want to say we serve the same exact thing to everyone. If someone's very obese, we'll incorporate some fasting with that. We'll try to cut back on the fats and steer much more to proteins. Whereas the thinner people, the people with dementia, will ramp up the fats, because if we can get them in ketosis, the ketones really help their brain as well. So there's some modifications. You can't just go completely one size fits all. But it's awfully nice to be able to just go, let's concentrate on the food and let's keep them active, and they'll all come around, and their body just adapts to it, rather than, we're just going to put you on this Miami South Beach diet that's just going to make you lose weight, but maybe it'll do something for dementia. I don't know. But all of these are just, it's a healthy lifestyle. It's not really a drug or a therapy, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's great that you're able to individualize it too and tailor it to the individual, the way you describe that: higher fat for the people who are thinner or have dementia, higher protein with lower fat for the people who need to lose the weight. I mean, I think that's such a wonderful approach. And you've also been very active on social media, on X or Twitter. I'm curious what kind of response you've gotten there as you share your success stories, as you share what you're doing to the world on social media.
It's been overwhelmingly positive, and a lot of people decry social media, but boy, I've met some just fantastic people, from doctors and health practitioners to people who just done amazing things. The caregivers in America are an incredibly under valued resource that we have, whether it's employees in assisted living homes, or just, the daughter of someone who takes care of their mom or grandmother in their own home. And it's an incredibly tough job. You are up all night many times. You're watching the person you love so much decline and have all these problems. And you do it out of love, and you fight with them all night, and then you wake up and have to go to work in the morning, and it's just, I tell people, like caregivers, thank you for your service every time they tell me their story, because I don't think they get the credit they deserve, and I'm in awe of every single one of them. I helped take care of my grandmother, but my mom did it mostly, and my mom and dad are doing this lifestyle now, and they're in their mid 80s, and they're living at home and thriving. So I think getting the word out to as many people as I can, and when people send me stuff, I try to share it on social media too. Like, hey, look at the success this person had. If you want to try it, I'm not trying to recommend anything, of course, but it's really cool to see. And I think, there's a whole lot of room for innovation in how we take care of people, not just elderly, but anyone with any kind of chronic condition.
Yeah. Well, I just find your whole story and journey so inspiring, and the content you share so inspiring. And I'm thrilled to hear that the demand is there and people are coming to you specifically because they know the type of lifestyle their loved one will get in your facilities. So thank you for doing all that. We mentioned your Twitter, your X profile, Paradise for Parents. Is that where you would direct people to go, or is there other places they can go to learn more about you and what you're offering?
Sure. Paradiseforparents.com is my website for the homes if they want to learn more about my homes. And I have a business Facebook page, a Paradise for Parents Assisted Living. I'm going to rattle off a couple. I'm sorry. I also do like a Facebook group called Brainstorming Alzheimer's that I just put up interesting videos I'm watching, podcasts I'm hearing, people's stories. I try when something really interesting comes to me, I ask if they'll get on Zoom with me. Let's record it and send it out to people so they can hear it on the Facebook group. And then I also have an email list where I send out like a newsletter like 3 times a week. And I have a little guide on things you can do to help someone who may be starting with dementia, just nutrition wise, exercise, some therapies. And that also you can download too. And so I've got a whole bunch. If you go to carnivoreonabudget.com, I wrote a lead magnet on how to buy carnivore, how to survive on the carnivore diet without spending a whole lot of money, because that seems to be a big concern of everyone too. And then fightmemoryloss.com is the one with some things you can do with the try to stave off dementia as much as you can.
Wow, that is a lot. That's a lot. You've been very active on a lot of different sites.
I'm trying
and
to
I'm glad
out to people. Like, how can I help?
Yeah.
And
I'm glad you brought up the budget part too. The budget part's so important because look, you're a business. You've got to survive. You need to make this financially viable for you as well. So clearly you found a way to do that. So I highly recommend people check out the site that you mentioned about Carnivore on a Budget, because I think it's so important to have those tips. And I think you would know more than anybody because you're not just doing it for yourself. You're doing it as a business for others. So important.
Oh yeah. For 40 people is challenging at times.
Right. All right. Well, very good. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time, and thank you for sharing all your amazing success.
Thank you, Bret. I really appreciate you having me on. This has been wonderful.